Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and here we talk about the harmful beliefs and ideas that come from religion, red pill, and so on. And today we're revisiting the Masculine Revival podcast. Last month, I did a video about Masculine Revival's 12 Ways Feminism Lies to Women episode. That was published on October 5th, and their next episode on October 11th mentioned it.
Let's do a special shout out for our biggest fan, the feminist cat lady spinster.
Oh God, dude.
Imagine, I was at my desk, working on my spreadsheets like a true modern woman, and then this. I was so surprised, I figured I was much too small potatoes for them to bother with. Though, come to think of it, Brendan did post a clip from my 2021 video about his content to his account before I even had 1,000 subscribers. And he does often reference Rachel Oates' video on him from earlier this year, but Rachel has a much larger account than mine. I think on some level it does bother him when people create commentary on his content, but...
For those who don't know, there's this woman. Her name is the feminist cat lady spinster, and she's been listening to my content for a couple of years, and she just did kind of a hit piece on Mike and I. And she listened to the feminist episode that we did recently. And she did an hour and 10-minute video dissecting our content. So yeah, special shout out to her. It takes a lot.
You guys should check it out. It's a bunch of just absolute nonsense. If you want some cheap, funny, kind of sad entertainment, go check it out. Shout out. Love you too.
I don't think they actually watched it. The video wasn't about them. And is that how this works? If you make a video and someone disagrees and makes their own video in response, that's a hit piece? That's not what hit pieces are. Anyway, they don't actually say anything about the substance, though Brendan notes it's an hour and 10 minutes long. It's actually an hour and 15 minutes, but of course it is. Their episode was an hour long. I'm really baffled by this reaction, but I guess this is how the game is played. If you don't like something and you have no response, just call it sad. Though I guess this does explain a random ha 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 comment I got a few days ago. It looks like about 2 people did check out the video per Brendan and Mike's recommendation, and their comments were just as thoughtful as the men they turned to for advice.
Okay. I guess we know you made it when people actually make hit pieces on you on the internet. When I saw my face and your face on that thumbnail, I was like, what the hell? What the hell is this, man?
Yeah, what's that other guy's name? So there's Alex Jones, and then there was that. What's that other guy's name? I can't remember.
Oh, who else? I can't remember who else was on that thumbnail.
Paul Watson or something like that. Me, you.
Was it?
Yeah,
was it Paul Watson?
Yeah.
That's funny, dude. Just to be on a thumbnail with Alex Jones, truthfully, feminist cat lady spinster, I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed.
Another common tactic, you have no response, so you just laugh as though it's too ridiculous to even seriously think about. But not too surprising from men who admire Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones. Anyway, since we're here, we're going to talk about this masculine and feminine dynamics where Brendan and Mike answer 12 true or false questions. And before we get into it, I think it's fairly obvious at this point that I don't know either of these two, and these are my thoughts and opinions. That being said, thank you for joining me, and I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons. So, to be honest, I really don't understand the need to gender everything. There are good traits and there are bad traits, good habits and bad habits. What makes something feminine and something else masculine? And who gets to decide that? Why are they the ones that decide that? Why is a masculine trait good in a man and bad in a woman? Why is a feminine trait good in a woman and bad in a man? If these traits are supposed to be innate and will be happier and more fulfilled when we follow them, why do we have to be lectured about it? Why can't we just let people be who they are? Anyway, that's enough questions from me, and for anyone wondering, they do acknowledge that this isn't in the Bible and this video might attract some New Agers, which gives them a chance to be sanctimonious.
All the New Agers are going to come listen to this, and I guess we're going to sneak the gospel in somewhere here.
Oh yeah. You're deceived. You need to get saved. You need Jesus. New Agers. Stop worshiping rocks.
Love it.
Sometimes I wonder if some people become Christian just so they can use the Bible to feel superior to others. Anyway, we're finally getting into the questions now, and the first one is, masculine-feminine polarity is extremely important to the health and well-being of a marriage. Obviously, I say false because what matters in a relationship is how compatible you are, not how well you play to your gender role. A man and a woman can't just marry and live peaceably together because one is a man and one is a woman. Who they are as people is what matters. Though it does occur to me that this is why they push for women to submit. The man gets to be who he is, and his wife just has to go along with it. Compatibility, not necessary. Brendan and Mike, of course, have different ideas.
How would you define that? Masculine, feminine polarity. It's how those two energies act upon each other, right?
Definitely.
Energies? Sounding a bit like a New Ager there, Mike. Naturally, they think that you need to follow biblical gender roles, and there's a certain juvenile selfishness if you believe in polarity. They really don't like the term polarity, and that is mainly what this section is about. Biblical gender roles are rooted in servitude, and polarity is a glorification of self. I don't care for the masculine-feminine polarity thing, but they haven't really given me a compelling reason for why it's selfish.
What I see with the polarity thing is it's kind of a glorification of self. It's like if you can fix your polarity, if you can solve this polarity thing, you can have a masterful relationship that's self-glorifying. And biblical gender roles, it's God-glorifying.
Never mind, polarity is selfish because it doesn't glorify God. Still not convinced, but moving on. All people have a masculine and feminine side within them. I say false, but that's because I don't believe there are masculine things and feminine things. Brendan and Mike, of course, agree with me on this one, though for different reasons. But at least they agree that emotion is a human thing, not a gendered thing, though they have to add that women have a more emotional nature than men. And of course.
Those men, I mean, what's the term? Divine masculine? Like they try to make it into this thing that it is where you're just a man that's just crying and sobbing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a time and place to do it.
It's not okay for any adult to cry and sob all the time. What we're saying is that it's okay for men to express emotion. And somehow, this is always where it goes. No one is saying men should be crying all the time, just that it's okay to cry. Anyway, the gist of it seems to be that everything is a human thing, and you just have to integrate it within yourself and not let it overtake you. Brendan notes they're struggling with this one because when you get into this new agey BS, it's confusing, but they are part of the problem. They might not use the terms divine feminine or masculine energy, but they do insist that men are one way and women are another, and there are things that men do and things that women do. And unsurprisingly, people have questions about what they should then be doing in accordance with their sex.
Would you say like the confusion in the New Age is almost deliberate, right? It's shrouded in all this like mystery, and it's deep and it's philosophical, because really at the foundation of it, there's nothing there.
I suspect the problem is that they don't want to think about things. They just want to be told what to do. New Agey stuff is philosophical, but the Bible is grounded in reality. Therefore, you don't have to think about what the Bible is telling you. You just have to think about whether or not you are showing up in the way the Bible tells you to. Got it. Brendan goes on to claim that if they really wanted to make money, they should shift into the New Age relationship dynamic sphere, but I feel pretty certain that Christian influencers make more than anyone in a New Age niche. They go on about how there are some New Agers who make thousands selling relationship courses, and middle-aged white women buy them because after decades of being a boss babe, they're trying to become feminine and find a man. I have no doubt those courses exist, but I am doubtful that they're as profitable as these two think. Anyway, we're going to combine the next two questions. A man can make a woman more feminine, a woman can make a man more masculine. Obviously, I say false because, again, I don't believe in this whole masculine and feminine thing, but I do think certain people can bring out certain traits, for better and for worse. However, these two do think a man can make a woman more feminine. Apparently, if a man is doing what he's supposed to be doing, protecting and providing, that will allow a woman to relax and be feminine. But on the other side, a woman can't make a man more masculine. However, she can inspire him by being joyful, cheerful, supportive, and uplifting, which is apparently how a woman embraces her feminine. It sounds like the same thing to me. Perform your gender role and that will cause your partner to perform theirs, but they come to different conclusions. I suspect this might be because of the underlying belief that men are everything and women are their appendage, there to support the man. And now for our next question. If a man leads well, a woman will naturally submit to him. I think this depends on what you consider leading and submitting. Is a man making a decision and a woman agreeing with it, him leading and her submitting? Because, obviously, it's easier to submit to a decision that you agree with, which is likely why BFB says it's not submission if you agree. This is the question they spent the most time on though, so perhaps they'll have some sparkling insight.
If a man leads well, will a woman naturally submit to him? I would say it's easier for a woman to submit. For sure, it's easier. Is it a golden ticket? Is it going to happen 10 out of 10 times? No, because a woman has a sin nature. And there's a rebellious spirit in her, regardless of how masculine a man is. And that doesn't go away just because he's performing well in life.
I love this. A man is supposed to lead, but if his wife isn't following, well, it's because of her sin nature, not because he's a bad leader. There is a whole host of things that come with this sin nature, like a romanticization, oh my goodness, of what a masculine man would be like, but all we really need to know is that it's the woman's fault. She's contentious, she's floating away in a daydream. Doesn't matter what shenanigans she's up to, men are to put their foot down and bring her back down to earth. And I have to say, for two men who at least make it seem as though their marriages are doing well, they have a lot to say about rebellious women.
Or you shouldn't be having dominion over each other. You're leading her, she's following you. And, if she's trying to be the captain, you got to kind of sit her down and say, hey, listen, these are the roles. And it's like, quote unquote, I'm like using this term because people take it way too seriously, but it's like putting her in her place in that way. Not in like a forceful, tyrannical way. It's about putting your foot down and letting it be known. I'm the man, you're the woman. There's a dynamic here. And sometimes you're not always going to like what I say or the decisions that I make.
I'm not really sure how saying, I'm the man, you're the woman, I make the decisions, and you won't always like them, but that's the way it is because I'm the man, isn't tyrannical, but okay. Also, Captain, Red Pill Talk. Anyway, Mike isn't quite done yet.
That is me loving you. That act is me loving you. Because
Exactly.
if I let you do what you want to do, you will destroy this relationship. Just like Eve destroyed that whole dynamic between her and Adam, because Adam was passive, she was rebellious, and look what happened.
Yeah, and that is the masculine leadership that she wants.
Sorry, I don't buy into the women are chaos nonsense. Nor do I buy into the men need to control women for their own good BS. That's me loving you. Do they hear themselves?
If you're going to lead, you have to be able to say no. You have to be able to actually have a contrary opinion once in a while and call things out if they need to be called out.
That's not leading. That's being a partner. I don't know if these two are talking about things they actually don't understand, or if they just pretend not to make their own beliefs seem preferable, but being in a relationship that's not built on gender roles doesn't mean just sitting in silence while your partner runs all over you. Being a partner means speaking up, voicing your wants and needs, having your own opinions, but rather than expecting your partner to just accept it and submit, you have to discuss the issues and, if you can, come to a conclusion that works for both of you instead of one of you making the decisions and the other having to adapt. And here, I believe, lies what draws certain men to these beliefs. They get to make the decisions and their wives just have to submit. No discussion, no compromise. She just has to accept it because, as a man, he is the leader. God said so. Brenton discourages waiting for perfection before submitting and notes that men are humans who make mistakes. To which I say, exactly. And I guess I have to include this.
Check your expectations, ladies, and repent.
Amen. Feminist cat lady Spencer just clipped that and she's very upset.
Oh, buddy. Just wait for it.
I wasn't going to, but I feel kind of obligated to now. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be upset about though. Mike randomly tells people to repent all the time, and when dealing with others, it's important to be mindful of your expectations. Of all the things they've said, this is nothing. Now we're on to our next question. Masculine men are a result of absent fathers and weak men. Obviously, I say false because, again, I don't believe in the masculine-feminine thing, but again, why would a trait be good for a man but not for a woman? And they just went through a whole thing in the beginning of the episode about how emotions aren't gendered and it's a waste of time thinking about if activities are masculine or feminine, so why are we here? Well, I guess we're here for Mike and Brendan to tell us that, yes, masculine women are indeed the result of absent fathers and weak men. Though, sometimes women are just possessed by a spirit of contention. Anyway, Brendan pops out with this gem.
There's this whole idea now that equality for a woman comes through doing what men have traditionally done for generations, which is get up, go to work, provide, make things happen.
Apparently, their idea of tradition begins and ends around 1800. Women have always worked. Most of them didn't have the luxury of sitting around waiting for a man to make things happen. It's not trying to be a man. It's getting recognition and pay for our work as well. Given that most people had to work, regardless of sex, I can only conclude that it's the recognition and pay that makes work masculine, and thus women shouldn't seek it because that makes them, shock horror, masculine. They talk about how women are indoctrinated into feminism without realizing it, and we're 100% replaceable at our jobs and irreplaceable at home. They apparently don't know what widowers traditionally did, and conclude that women these days have fallen away from Christ, which is a big reason we're masculine now.
Being a feminine woman in today's day and age is just so countercultural.
Oh yeah, you're coming up against a lot of resistance. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, dude.
Like
For sure.
the programming, the weaponized propaganda machine, all of this stuff you have to overcome.
This really confused me because I would say I know a lot of feminine women and it's not a big deal. And then I realized the word is the same, but our meanings are very different.
This idea of like, yeah, I'm going to be feminine. I'm going to surrender to a man. I'm going to get married, not have a job, be fully dependent on him. Like that is, I'm just trying to imagine from like the average woman's perspective in today's day and age, like how drastic that must seem.
Why is being feminine dependent on relying on a man? You should trust your partner, and I believe most women do, but what is this about surrendering? And then I realized that is what they think being feminine is. Being feminine is making yourself appealing to men, relying on men, having your world revolve around men, and making men's lives easier. A woman can't be feminine if she has something for herself, like a job or money. And as an average woman, you know, there are ways to be a stay-at-home spouse or parent without putting yourself at financial risk. But the idea that you give up who you are to serve someone else? No, I would not do that. And as I've said before, someone who truly cares about you as a person, not as someone who can do something for them, wouldn't want you to do that.
Now you're kind of putting yourself in this vulnerable position to, I got to find this man and then fully trust him to take care of me, and I got nothing of my own. So you can see why women are kind of that lean towards that feminist boss babe self-preservation mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not even about being a boss babe. I'm not a capitalist, but I am a person and someone who thinks women should put all their trust in someone else, and I quote, have nothing of their own, is highly suspect to me. And where on earth did they get the idea that this is natural? Did they ever consider women people?
It's a lot of work for sure to deprogram that mindset. And I think the best way to really do it is to meet a man like what we're talking about, knows what he wants, where he's going, who he is, and wants this traditional life. When that happens, it does create a sense of safety.
There is no sense of safety when someone wants you to essentially give up your life to be their support. Brendan acknowledges there are risks involved, like death, but I honestly don't think they live in the real world.
Thankfully, she's a very capable woman, and I'm sure that she's going to figure it out, right? She's got a lot of family.
Maybe his wife's family is insanely wealthy, I don't know, but the reality for most of us is that our families couldn't support themselves in addition to their daughter, sister, cousin, whoever, and however many children she has. And no matter how capable his wife is, if she's been out of the workforce for 10, 20 years, how likely does he think it is that she's going to be able to find a job that provides benefits and enough money to, again, house and feed herself and however many kids? They aren't thinking long term, and this isn't being fearful, it's being practical. I hope they at least have some savings.
But to not adhere to the traditional model because there's risks involved is just ridiculous. There's risks in everything. So I don't really get that one.
That much is clear, and this is so irresponsible. They couldn't even mention life insurance. It's just, oh, my wife or her family will figure it out. Somehow, Mike likens this to men being afraid of divorce, and these two really don't make marriage sound appealing at all.
You understand that marriage, regardless, is like, you know, having my wife hold a loaded gun to my head and just hoping she never fires it. But that's what it is.
If that's how you think of marriage, I really don't understand why you would get married. But apparently, Mike can't think of what else you would do.
And it's like, I don't understand what's the alternative then, right? Same thing for women. It's like, you have a hard time trusting a man.
It's not even about trust, though. I mean, you do have to have a certain level of trust to marry someone, but it's about so much more than that. This section got so strange, and Mike uses this as a segue into an advertisement for a conservative dating website, and it strikes me as poor timing. No matter who's listening, do you really want to think about finding someone to date after this talk? Thankfully, after this, we move on to the next question. If gender roles have been reversed in a marriage, it can be corrected. Obviously, I have no comment, but Mike and Brendan agree that they can. It will just be an uphill battle and easier in a Christian marriage. There's not much here, though I am so curious about these women who allegedly say they want a masculine man. On to the next question. If a man isn't occupying his masculine role, divorce is an option. Given that the masculine role in their world is going out and providing and the woman is to stay home, I would guess yes, because otherwise she and any potential kids might starve. Brendan and Mike say no, though they do allow they could maybe see it if the man wasn't providing. However, they also say it's tough. And of course, when women are discontent, they can really twist things to make it impossible. They discourse about this for a while, and if someone wants a divorce, it's really not my business, and I don't need to pass judgment on it, nor do I want to. And honestly, my husband wasn't masculine enough is never a reason I've seen for a divorce. But it's time for Mike's red pill moment.
They're already thinking about divorce, and they just maybe this is their easy out. Most of the time, it's something like that.
Yeah, no, it's he's present, he's loving, he's stable, he's secure, and he's a bit of a nice guy. I'm going to divorce him. Come on.
Yeah, that's garbage.
What are you talking
Total
about?
garbage.
Right?
Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, he went.
And then they usually realize, they usually get out of that marriage. They do whatever they do. And then they realize, man, I really screwed up a good thing. That's all I really had to deal with. How many times do you see stuff like that happen? I've seen it so many times all over the internet, man.
Over and over.
I love how they just invented this imaginary situation and got so mad about it. But that is red pill. They've imagined a world where women divorce good men for no reason and come to regret it. And true to form, after this they talk about how true abuse is rarer than women claim, and women claim abuse because a man hurt their feelings.
Just because he said no and then maybe he raised his voice that one time, that's not abuse. Like, it's just not abuse. Yeah. It actually is kind of degrading to the ones that have actually gone through legitimate, physical and sexual abuse at the hands of their husbands. But him just being that way, him maybe being a bit of a jerk once in a while, not that it's right to be a jerk once in a while, it goes to show you that that's where our society's gotten though, right?
Yeah.
If you're disagreeable, it's abuse. It's like, no, you're just soft.
Apparently, it hasn't occurred to them that someone who's just disagreeable can escalate into what they consider true abuse, and it's also reasonable to not want to continue being married to someone who's disagreeable. Very interesting coming from someone who just likened marriage to your spouse holding a gun to your head while you hope they don't pull the trigger. But per usual, ladies, this is actually your fault.
And you don't know how to actually follow your husband's lead in certain situations, or sometimes he's just getting it wrong and he's getting a little bit angry. Most guys are pretty remorseful that I've met and known, and sometimes their wives just don't give them a chance to repent and to act out that remorse. Right? It's like, just be perfect. If you're angry, then you're abusive, and it's a write-off.
There we go. Women just don't give men a chance when men get angry. They didn't really mean it. This is so irresponsible. Everyone has to use their best judgment in their relationships, but these two have a platform and a business coaching men, and this is what they choose to do with it. They talk a nice game about men being the leader and taking responsibility, but at the end of the day, it always comes back around to something women did or didn't do. Following this, Brendan and Mike have a laugh about a story a woman told Brendan about how she was abused, and apparently Brendan gets stories like that all the time. And this man is far too credulous for being in his 30s. Or he believes these things because it promotes his own narrative that women cry abuse at everything. Thankfully, that's it for this section, and we go on to the next question. Women are as capable of leading the marriage as men. I don't think anyone should be leading a marriage or any relationship. You're adults. Work things out like adults. Brendan and Mike say women can lead, but Brendan says she'll hate her life and her husband, and Mike says that will lead to a dead bedroom and resentment. They advise that men not even think about that. Just be a man and lead, because the alternative is horrible. And on to the last question. Traditional gender roles are the best relationship model for men, women, children, and society as a whole. I'm sure we all know by now that I disagree and that Brendan and Mike agree, though Mike does caveat that only when God is at the foundation, otherwise we're just plain dress up. Brendan doesn't want to partake of the fruit of modern relationships. They mock polygamy and polyamory, and, weirdly enough, they mock Christians. In short, everything except a biblical marriage with biblical gender roles will lead to destruction. And thankfully, that is it. We go to their closing thoughts, and Mike thinks the masculine and feminine space is littered with new age, and they're charting new territory. I know Mike has a smaller following than Brendan, but surely he's aware of all the trad accounts out there. Anyway, Brendan says the polarity stuff is too confusing. What does inner feminine even mean? And if he watched to understand instead of to mock, he could probably figure it out. Or not. If it's not for him, it's not for him, but that doesn't mean it's wrong or worthless. They end the episode saying everyone should have a Bible, and why would you need anything else when God has laid out how to be a human and how to do relationships? They do add that their work is important because sometimes the Bible can be confusing and they think they explain things well. And thank goodness that's over. I would like to note that their episode was about an hour long and I only used 6 minutes. Partly because they didn't really say anything worthwhile, and partly because my current plan regarding my audio woes is for me to talk more, which is a bit tricky given my jaw, but we'll work through it, and if any words sound weird, that is because my jaw does not want to pronounce them. Anyway, as for my final thoughts, I think I gave most of them throughout, but I do wonder if they'll give me another shout out. It's kind of amusing they're so pressed that such a small channel is commenting on their content. It makes me wonder, but all in all, I think they're playing a dangerous game. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.